Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Jordy and I'm here to do another tarot lesson. Today we're going to be focusing on the major arcana, the first 22 cards in the tarot deck. These are the major archetypes of our world. They talk about overall themes that we all go through individually as well as collectively. They are very much centered and focused around the zodiac signs and the planets. And they also have secret hidden meanings as well. Now, I've been reading tarot cards for 7, going on 8 years now. And I also have a spiritual background of learning about spirituality and going through a spiritual awakening when I was in my earlier 20s. I feel very much like I'm on a spiritual path, and it shapes the way that I read tarot cards. I mean, there's the day-to-day reading of tarot cards for my personal readings that I do for people, where I'm doing fortune telling, where I'm looking at what everybody's going through individually in a one-on-one session, and that's very much a practical use of the tarot cards. And then you see me reading tarot cards and oracle cards here on YouTube, where I'm exploring collective themes and getting into different topics and kind of basically exercising my ability to read tarot cards here on YouTube in a way that allows me to grow as a reader as well. So when it comes to the major arcana, today I'm going to walk through the traditional symbolism, the traditional meanings that I have grown to know and use in my tarot practice. Of course, there may be hundreds or thousands of ways to traditionally read these cards based off of what everybody else knows in their own practice. But I'm going to give you what I know. And I'm also going to walk through a bit of a theory that I have about the 22 major arcana altogether. I believe that there is prophecy within the major arcana, and it is playing out in our lives right now. So if you're interested in watching this video to the very end, towards the end of the video I will talk about how I see the prophecy energies within the major arcana and what that means, and we'll do a little bit of a channeling with the major arcana towards the end of this video. But in the very beginning of this video, it's mostly just focusing on, in order from the Fool card all the way into the World card, traditional symbolism and meanings, so that you can walk away from this video with a refreshed knowledge on what the major arcana mean. Perhaps this is your very first experience learning about major arcana, or you're just brushing up on your skills and searching for deeper meanings. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting below, and subscribing to my channel, by the way. Just wanted to say that before we get started. I really do appreciate all of your love and support, and it helps my videos reach more people. If you are interested in more of these tarot lessons, I've published one a few weeks ago. It's on my main page, and we walk through the tips and tricks on how to get started with a tarot reading using a 10-card Celtic spread. And I walk through how to read the cards in a 10-card Celtic spread in the way that I read them. And it's a good overall video just to gain some insight and knowledge on how to read tarot. Moving forward with these tarot lessons, I'll be focusing on different themes. So today's major arcana, maybe I'll focus on the minor arcana next. We'll see. The very first card here is the Fool card. The Fool card is represented by Aries in the zodiac wheel, the very first zodiac sign. It's a springtime energy. As you can see, this Fool, this character, is wearing, regular clothing of the time, but very like whimsical and not very practical. You can see the snow in the mountains in the background, but you can also see there's no snow on the ledge that this fool is standing on. So it is a springtime energy when the snow is still melting, just like in Aries season for some places around the world. The warmth of the sun is coming through. And when you read tarot cards, particularly major arcana, and if you're looking for time stamps or time markers in a reading, the easiest way to look for a time marker is to use the major arcana in a spread. For example, if you had 2 different major arcana in your 10-card tarot spread, one of them was the Fool card, maybe for example the other one was the Magician, you just go back and think, oh, what zodiac signs or what planets do they represent? The Fool card represents Aries, the Magician represents Gemini and Virgo. So there all of a sudden you have time markers of, springtime Aries energy, summertime Gemini energy, and the fall of Virgo season. Then you look at the minor arcana, and you may notice that there's other energies that represent Aries or other energies that represent Gemini. And you can, based off of the story and the message you've channeled so far in the tarot reading, assign an event or an energy to that time frame. So that's how, as a personal reader, reading for people on one-on-one sessions, that's one way you can determine a time marker for somebody in a reading, is to look at the pattern of the zodiac signs and to find out which month we're focusing on, or which moon cycle as well, if you want to get very specific for the day-to-day energies, because the moon changes cycle every 2 days, every 2.5 days, I believe. So that's a tip and trick that's for maybe perhaps the advanced reader, but it's something you can start practicing now, whether, no matter what level you're at. So yeah, that's my little introductory blurb on how to read time in a tarot reading using the major arcana and the zodiac symbols. But if we get back to the Fool card, it's the number 0. It's the very beginning of the major arcana. It's the very first card in the tarot deck. I mean, the Fool is new, fresh energy. It's the first zodiac sign, Aries. It's talking about taking a risk and going on an adventure, discovering some new part of yourself, and the Fool card's very powerful because it's like a student energy. It's knowing that you don't know anything at all, but you're still willing to learn, still willing to try. And it's kind of like egoless, just going out and, tapping into that fire energy of Aries, of starting something new, of taking lead, taking charge of your life, by taking a risk and trusting in the divine. The sun is at this Fool's back. The Fool also has a little dog in there, indicating like loyalty and friendship and closeness with the universe. And the Fool is also carrying a packet tied to the walking stick, so it's not, they are ready for a journey, but it's not like they've packed a whole suitcase or a whole van full of items to take with them. It means pack lightly. So there's lots of symbolism to this card. It's a bright yellow sunny card. It indicates lots of awareness, a fresh awareness, because yellow is all about awareness and intelligence. There's orange on the sleeves of this Fool, It's also a very androgynous character, so this is kind of one of the androgynous cards in the deck. It could be either sex, or anything in between. So with the orange on the sleeves, orange talks about hunger and passion and like a desire, basically, for knowledge, for experience, for a new adventure. And if you look at the clothing that the Fool is wearing, it's wearing like grapevines and pentacles on the clothing. So that's all symbolism from the Ten of Pentacles and the King of Pentacles cards in the tarot deck, which talk about like stability, family, long-term energy, solidified energy, enterprise, culture. So like this Fool does come from a place that was secure and full of life and full of meaning, but the Fool basically has walked away from that and taken a little bit with him to go into a new space, to try out a new territory, to find a new Ten of Pentacles, which is security in a different area, or perhaps just to know that they're secure wherever they go. You can stay in the Fool energy if you want to. It's very much the Traveler card, and it's very much a student energy. So if I were to pick a few keywords for the Fool card, I would say student, traveler, new beginnings, fresh start, taking a risk, and optimism. So we have the Magician. The Magician is all about magic and activation. It's all about connection to, the divine as well, through the tools that have been given to you. The Magician's all about potential, activation, and it's when, you've accumulated experiences. You've taken those experiences and now you know how to use them to your advantage. It's quite the leap from the Fool card. The Fool card's like a student. The Magician is someone who's learned quite a bit, enough to manifest their dreams. They set an intention and then they try to bring that intention into reality. So it's all about manifestation and magic. It's all about potential and opportunity. It's all about skill. The Magician is ruled by Mercury, which is, which is also governing the houses of Virgo and Gemini. The Fool card's ruled by Uranus, by the way. So there is a tie to Aquarius as well with the Fool card. But with the Magician here, it's all about technology, information, as well as magic. It's where like technology and magic meet. There's lots of symbolism in the Magician card, especially for like the esoteric messages of magic. There's like the snake biting its tail belt. There's the infinity symbol, the double pointed wand, bringing down energy from the top and channeling it down into the bottom, into this world, from the heavens to the earth below. There's the wand, the cup, the pentacle, the sword, all on the table. It's interesting because like all the different elements that the Magician could be wielding, fire, water, earth, air, but the Magician's deciding to wield light instead, the candle, the double-ended candlestick, which represents light and darkness. So there is an element here of good versus evil with the Magician. Especially if we were reading reversals. I'm not going to talk too much about reversals in this video, but the Magician reversed can be kind of like a bad guy, a trickster, a Loki, mercurial energy that's gone dark and mischievous-like. Overall, the key words to the Magician are manifestation, magic, intentions, opportunities, having the tools you need to succeed, and strong willpower. When you see a magician in a reading, oftentimes it means that person is fully responsible for what happens in their life, good or bad. They're manifesting it, and their words are powerful, their mind is powerful. It's an intellect card. Okay. Very beautiful. So we have the High Priestess. Card number 2. Where the Magician's all about the aces, card number 1. The High Priestess is all about duality, the dark and the light. And the High Priestess keeps the records. She's got the Akashic records in her scroll here. So she knows about the rules of the universe, the fate of the universe. The High Priestess is ruled by Pisces. It also has the symbol of the moon, the crescent moon, which can be a Taurus energy, as well as the High Priestess has the pomegranates in the background, which is an energy of Persephone, whereas the Magician is an energy of like Loki or Hermes. High Priestess is an energy of Persephone or Lilith. Darker characters of the underworld. Very interesting. The High Priestess talks about intuition, talks about the Akashic records, which are the past, present, and future of the entire universe, of all the different souls. The Akashic records are a library of what is going to be and what's happening already. It's a spiritual dimension, and the High Priestess can tap into the spiritual dimension. She also knows the mysteries of the universe. She knows the mysteries of the earth as well. She's very much connected to the nature and to the plants and to the psyche as well of humanity. So she's a healer. She's also a wisdom. She's a teacher, and she talks about higher learning and archives, storing knowledge. Keywords for the High Priestess are intuition, karma, mysteries, secrets, knowledge, teaching, and duality, dark and light, the balance between the two. Very beautiful card. We have the Empress. The Empress is ruled by Libra, by Venus, which rules Libra and Taurus energy. So, the Empress is typically seen as Libra, Taurus energy, love and wealth and abundance, which is because Libra represents, love and balance, and Taurus represents abundance and sensitivity. So the Empress is all of that. She's also got a shield with like the feminine symbol on it, in the shape of a heart. She's got a gown with strawberries on it. She has a crown full of stars. She has a scepter. She's sitting on a beautiful, comfortable lounge out in nature with the fields of grain and the river and the forest in the background, and it's got a yellow sky. So it's a very potent, powerful card. I love the Empress. I think she can have so much meaning. You know, keywords for the Empress can talk about love, abundance, wealth, fertility, pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood, divine feminine, matriarch, female ruler, the divine feminine within all of us. She talks about growth, agriculture. You know, the goddess is representing Demeter, the goddess of the grain, and she's also can represent Hera, the queen of the universe, or Venus herself, which is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. There's lots of different archetypes within the Empress. Mother Nature herself. There's a life and a death component to Empress. There's a transformation component to her because of the pregnancy. There's conception of an idea, of an energy, and then there's the transmutation and growth of an energy. Then there's the birth into this world and the nurturing and taking care of an energy or a situation. And then learning to let it go as well. So it's a very powerful energy that talks about many aspects of our life. Oftentimes when I see the Empress card in a reading, I think about growth, and I think about being in a process. It's also an energy of self-worth and self-value, where she is the Empress, she is the matriarch, she's the queen of all the queens. She has the intuition of the High Priestess energy, but she's also more grounded and more practical, and more so to do with love and pleasure and abundance and experiences and the life, the pain, the good, the pain of living as well, whereas the High Priestess removes himself from the pain, in order to be desensitized. The High Priestess removes herself from the world in general and practices abstinence and practices, like a cool energy, where the Empress is very warm and transformative. So keywords again would be mother, pregnancy, love, wealth, abundance, self-worth. We have the Emperor. The Emperor is masculine, male energy, or the divine masculine within all of us. Gender is just what it is with tarot. It's there, but it doesn't have to be there, kind of thing. But there's gender within gender, but I'm not going to get too much into that topic today. But the Emperor has got a red background, an orange background. So it's very much about, pleasure, desire. And then there's the mountains, which talk about achievement and being on top of the world. They represent hard work and the challenges we face. The Emperor is sitting on a concrete, throne. He's wearing red garments, which talk about power and strength and vitality. He's got a crown, a scepter, I think some type of orb or something in his hand. There's like an Egyptian element because the scepter has like an ankh, like the staff of life. So, the Emperor is like the Pharaoh, basically. Uh, it's ruled by Aries. It's ruled by the energy of Mars as well. It's a warrior energy. It talks about war. It talks about kingdom, authority, law, order, consequences. The Emperor is like a discipline card as well. It's the father archetype. They take action. They govern over people. They are full of guidance and wisdom. They're usually in charge of companies, in charge of a household. They're always in charge. It's a leadership energy, the Emperor. It's number 4, which is all about stability, whereas Empress is number 3, which is all about, magic and growth and opportunity and life itself. The Emperor keywords would be leadership, discipline, law, order, divine masculine. And whenever I see the Emperor in a reading, I just think of like all the hard work it takes to get into that position of authority and power. I think of it as the root chakra, the solar plexus chakra. I also think of it as like the kind king, the kind ruler. When the card is reversed, it can be negative attributes of that card, but we're not going to talk too much about reversals today. Ultimately, the Emperor can talk about career or company, corporation, legal situations. And it's about achievement, mastery, and responsibility. It's an active energy, but it's also about delegating, because he is the Emperor. The next card we have, number 5, is the Hierophant, which is the Pope, the Church, the spiritual leader. This card has followers in the bottom of the card as well. So it does talk about community and society, and different societies that have different structures and hierarchy to them. The Emperor and the Empress talk about hierarchy as well, but they're at the top. They're the royalty. They're the conquerors, whereas the Hierophant is more of like an earned position. And the Hierophant does talk about faith and commitment. Because of the spiritual nature of this card, it talks about religion. It also talks about organizations in general, like governments and society structures, corporations, companies. The pillars are very much an important part of the Hierophant card. And the Hierophant is wearing like a religious headpiece, but it's got these big flaps over its ears, so it's only listening to God. It's not listening to the public, basically. So the Hierophant is only interested in like, as a spiritual card, connection to God and faith. It tunes out everything else. So it's a very spiritually pure card. It can be negative when it's reversed. It can talk about rebellion when it's reversed as well. But looking at the upright meetings, it can talk about marriage. It can talk about relationships. And it can talk about births or baptisms or spiritual initiations. It is kind of a card that can represent connection to God and the universe. The Emperor can represent that as well, and so can all of the major arcana, really, because they are the archetypes. They are the magical cards in the tarot deck. So they all represent connection to the universe in some way. But the Hierophant is the most like traditional mouthpiece of God, so to speak. So if we think about the Hierophant in a reading, it often talks about, companies, organizations, workplaces. It often talks about community, family, marriage, long-term relationships and commitments. It can talk about spirituality, spiritual commitment, a spiritual path. It also talks about listening. Now, the Hierophant is ruled by Taurus energy, which is very interesting. I don't know too much about how the Taurus energy influences the Hierophant, but it is an earth card, an earth energy. And the Hierophant is something that wouldn't be possible without the leadership and the organization of a kingdom or an emperor's, whatever you call an emperor's kingdom, like empire, So without those higher levels of organization, the Hierophant wouldn't be possible, because the Hierophant is charitable and benefits from the charity and the taxes and the power of the armies and agriculture. Like, it depends on the agriculture of the Empress card. It depends on the armies of the power of the Emperor. The Hierophant is a higher level of sophistication in society that only comes in when there's law and order and abundance and stability of the Emperor and Empress. And it's very much closely connected to the High Priestess energy as well, because the High Priestess is that magic, and it's connected to the Magician as well, because the Magician is the magic, the ceremony. The High Priestess is the knowledge, the wisdom, the hidden meaning, and the Hierophant has all of that. The Hierophant teaches the Fool, and governs the fools, and fools try to break free of the Hierophant, but ultimately the Hierophant has what the Fool wants. It's interesting. But very complex card. They get more and more complex as you go. So we have the number 6, the Lover's card, which is also ruled by Gemini. The Lover's card is very interesting. It's the lovers, so it does talk about partnership. It talks about Adam and Eve. It talks about biblical moments. It's got the burning bush. It's got the garden apples. So, to me, the Lover's card talks about times when the universe, like divine timing, basically, when God comes forward or angels come forward to deliver messages. So it is an energy of love and of, cosmic love. But it's also an energy of, like, choices. Choices are a key word in the Lover's card. It's the choices that Eve and Adam made in the garden, and the choices that Moses made with the burning bush, and the choices we make in our love relationships that really change our lives and the lives of everybody else around us. Now, love is what binds us. Love is what keeps us together and motivates us. It's what, keeps our society going. It's what brings in, new life. And it just represents important moments in your life, the Lover's card, important decisions you have to make, and times when your heart, your soul is more closely connected to you. It's the times you write about in your history books or in your journals, or say if you're at your funeral, people are talking about those major points in your life. But that's the Lover's card, those major junctions. Because, it's ruled by Mercury. It's ruled by Gemini energy. And Mercury is all about crossroads and about the paths we take and the communications we make. It's also about the masculine and the feminine hemispheres of the brain. It's very beautiful. So the Lover's card's about union, and so is the Hierophant, and so is the Chariot. They all have that in common. This is the union of opposite forces. This is the union in love. This is the union with the divine. It's very cool. So Lover's card has a lot of meaning. There's a lot of like esoteric meaning to the Lover's card. But ultimately, when I see it in a reading, it represents, if I see a Lover's card, there's a love relationship that we're talking about. There's a really important time in their life that's being talked about as well. Their heart is really invested in a decision that they're making. That's what I think of when I see the Lover's card in the reading. It's also an angel card, so when you see angels in the readings, there's only 3 angel cards. There's 4. There's the Devil card as well, who's also an angel. They're very powerful. They represent the divine trying to connect to us. In this case, the divine connects to us through other people. Where a lot of people may not pursue the energy of the Hierophant in their life, the energy of religion, the energy of spiritual connection with God, we all experience love in certain ways. The love of our parents, the love of, a lover, or our children, or something like that. Those are all moments when we're still connecting to God in some ways, or the angels, our higher selves, our spiritual path. So, anyway, the Lover's card talks about keywords: union, love, relationship, choices, heart space, energy, as well as important events in our life. We have the Chariot. The Chariot is ruled by Cancer. It's very much the power and the tenacity of Cancer. Whereas Cancer can also be talked about as like a feminine and a mother-like zodiac sign. The Chariot also brings out like the power of the armor of the crab, of the Cancerian symbol. And the Chariot has a bright yellow background. It's just like the Lovers, just like Strength and Empress and Fool and Magician. So it's very much a potent, powerful awareness energy. It's got the 2 Sphinx in the front. The black and white. The Sphinx being like a, full of symbolism itself. But, basically, sometimes the Chariot has horses in the front instead of Sphinx. Like a black and a white horse, but they represent opposites, the opposing forces. They also represent the power of knowledge. And the Chariot is also so much about the actual chariot itself in the card, the vehicle. It's about the armor that the person is wearing. There's stars upon his head, upon the canopy of the vehicle itself. You can see the town, the village, the society around it in the background of the card. It's very cool. So the Chariot card is a card of victory and success. That's the most popular interpretation of the card. This person has won a war, has won a battle, is parading through the streets, is enforcing their rule. It's very popular energy. It's very much an energy of travel and forward movement and vehicles and machines in general. It's a card of power and of speed. Whenever I see the Chariot in a reading, I think of forward movement in a straight and narrow path. The Chariot doesn't turn very easily. The Chariot doesn't have very good brakes either. It's all about just powerfully moving forward at a pace that is fast. So you can kind of crash with the Chariot card. You can hit speed bumps. You can hit a pothole. You can hit roadblocks. You may have to go on a detour with the Chariot card. You may have to navigate in different ways. So the Chariot card, when it's upright, is just about forward movement and success and control and power and the union of opposites from the Lover's card. But when it's reversed, I often read it as like all the different things that can happen when you're on the road, like a detour, an alternate route, unexpected pathway. So to me, it gets spun in circles and veered off course when it's reversed, which makes the card very fun to read when you see it in a reading. It's very much a career card as well, and a teamwork energy. We have the Strength card. This card is gorgeous. It's very feminine. It's very powerful. It represents strength. So it represents compassion, softness, as well as strength, like no fear, it represents bravery, but it's also like the strength of sensitivity, the strength of nurturing. It's a feminine card for a reason. It's not the brute strength of the Chariot card or the Emperor energy. It's the strength of the feminine, which can tame the wildest of the beasts. Talks about bringing control to a situation. Talks about empathy. It's the Empath card, because the Queen has to understand the emotions of the lion in order to tame it. It also talks about friendship and connection to animals and to nature. It's very much a nature energy. It's very much a health energy as well. The Strength card can talk about health and vitality. It can talk about, it's got the Strength card also has not very much symbolism in it, but the Strength herself, she's bigger than the landscape, so is the lion. So I always think of that as like an energy of growth and expansion, becoming bigger than the situation that you're in, the higher level of understanding. And the Hermit card is the higher level of understanding, which is the next card anyway, so it's kind of like growing into that energy. The Chariot card's about popularity, celebrity status, moving forward victoriously. And then the Strength card is kind of like, doesn't care about all that. The Strength card only cares about, society itself, nature itself, love itself, what needs to be preserved, like our health. So whenever I see the Strength card in a reading, to me it automatically indicates that there's health coming through a personal reading. Like someone's health is either really good or recovering, or they've gone through a tremendous obstacle, because Strength can talk about obstacles as well. And then they've overcome it through strength and through power and realization. It also talks about control. It also talks about empathy and compassion. So those are all the main themes of the Strength card. With that infinity symbol above her head, it is a manifestation card as well. She's the female magician. So instead of like the direct energy of the Magician card, this card's more hands-on, where the Magician's more like manipulative and intelligent and using words, using the power of the mind. The Strength card's like using the power of like connection and emotion and physical touch, physical strength. It's the energy behind the wand. Strength card's ruled by Leo, obviously with the lion there. And it's number 8. 8's about abundance. So Strength can also represent abundance, self-realization. Okay, moving into the Hermit card, ruled by Mercury, so again, but it represents Virgo. The Hermit card is a gorgeous card, but it's also got a dark background. It's nighttime energy. There's also the snow on the mountaintops that the Hermit is standing on. The Hermit is larger than the scene around it, just like the Strength card. So it does talk about rising above and expanding beyond the limitations of your environment. The Hermit card is a seeker, just like the Fool. But the Hermit card is more of a teacher energy. The Hierophant is also a teacher. It's a spiritual teacher. It's the teacher at school. The student being the Fool card, but the Hermit card's more of like the stranger on the street that gives you advice, or that special guru. And they have a special connection, and they're more, it's very individualistic and unique, where it's not organized religion. It's more so like just extreme wisdom and intelligence, and having something that other people don't know that they have. They're cloaked, yet they have a star in their lantern. So it's a very beautiful card. It talks about illumination in the dark. It talks about seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom. The Hermit is the Hermit as well. Like, they go into isolation. They go into extremes. It's a card of extremes. Reaching, looking in the places that you never thought you would look. Going to places you never thought you would have to go. And gaining wisdom from that. Not everything that the Hermit card has been learned easily as well. There's a lot of pain behind the Hermit card, but the Hermit doesn't flash that pain out. It keeps it quiet. So the Hermit card, when it's reversed, where it's a card of extremes, it talks about extreme morality and extreme, mysticism and spirituality, and going to extremes in order to find that spirituality. Seeking it out, going to the top of the Himalayas and meditating and all of that. When it's reversed, it can talk about criminal activity, the lowest of the low, the opposite of seeking spirituality. So, and the Hermit card reverse can also talk about coming out of the shadows, coming out of that space as well. Depends on what other cards are around it, but those are ways that I've interpreted that card in readings. Now, I will say this. I should have said this at maybe perhaps in the beginning, but if you're with me now, hopefully this knowledge helps. When you read the Minor Arcana, there's so many different ways to read a Minor Arcana. It's the everyday life of the tarot. When you get the Major Arcana, they're more hard to grasp. They're harder to read. They've got stronger themes that always pervade throughout the reading, but there's subtler elements to it. So, don't get hung up too much on reading a Major Arcana in a tarot reading, I guess is my point. Look at it, state a few facts about it, realize that it's influencing every other card in the reading, then move on. Move on to the court cards. Move on to the Minor Arcana and discover what those nuances are about. Key words for the Hermit: seeker of knowledge and wisdom, spirituality, isolation, going within to find answers, meditation, sage-like wisdom. Then we have the Wheel of Fortune, which is also an energy of knowledge, because we have all these different fixed signs in the four corners of the card. And we've got Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo, all reading books. It's an interesting card. The Wheel of Fortune doesn't have an individual in it. It just has symbols. It represents abundance because it's the Wheel of Fortune. But the wheel is quickly able to turn. The wheel could be in a position for centuries, millennia, then it could turn. Or it could turn day to day. It's a wheel. It's very unpredictable. It's divine karma, and it's attached to no one. It's attached to no thing. It's a change in a situation. It's change itself. There is a way to understand the Wheel of Fortune, and that's through the High Priestess. That's through the Hermit. However, it takes perhaps lifetimes to understand the Wheel of Fortune. So it's a card of learning, continual learning. Learning through the change of situations. Learning through the ups and downs of abundance and lack. Awareness and ignorance. Up and down, left and right. It represents the directions of a compass as well. It represents travel. It's Sagittarius energy, so it definitely represents travel and knowledge. There's a devil carrying the wheel. There's a sphinx protecting it on top. There's a snake, which talks about healing and temptation and the shedding of the old. So there's lots of symbolism in the Wheel of Fortune. I don't get too hung up on it when I see it in a reading. All I think of really is that, oh, there's a change in a situation. Oh, this is a big reading. There's a big change. There's a cycle that's been going on for a while that's going to change. That's going to end or renew itself. When the Wheel of Fortune is reversed, it means that change is necessary, but perhaps it's not going to happen until other cards around it, activate. So oftentimes you see it, the Wheel of Fortune can be upright or it can be reversed in a reading, but depending on the cards around it, you may look at it and think, it's actually not going to stay in that position for very long, especially if some of these other cards around it change or activate. So, try not to make too much assumptions about the Wheel of Fortune, like, oh, it's just a good luck card. Oh, you've got great abundance coming. No, it's more about, it is those things, but it's also about, change itself, which can happen in ways we don't even understand. It's a wheel, so it's always turning. The wheels can get stuck, but eventually will start to turn again. It's floating in the sky. Represents directions that we head in. It's a very interesting card, but it's not the most interesting card in the Major Arcana, I have to say. Now we have Justice. Justice represents law and order, just like the Emperor. It's Libra energy. It represents balance. Represents institution. Just like the Hierophant, it's got the concrete pillars. The Justice card always stumps me as a reader. I get very intimidated when I see it. It's just like the Tower card for me. Like, it's divine intervention. It can talk about legalities or legal situations often. It can talk about balance, but it's not a very easy card to read. There's not too much going on in the card except for somebody who is, doling out karmic justice. The justice depends on the other cards around it. Because it's like, what kind of justice are we talking about? Are we talking about emotional justice? Are we talking about emotional balance? Are we talking about taking action or the lack of action? Are we talking about, different opinions, ideas? Are we talking about money, rules, ownership? So it's a card that'll tell you that that there may be a conflict, that there has to be organization, there has to be law and order in something. And it can be a very tricky card to read. I will say that. you know, when you're a card reader, especially when you're doing personal readings for people, your spirit guides will know what you know about the cards. So I kind of just designate the Justice card as a legal situation card for me, just so I don't get overly complicated by it in a personal reading. I've kind of shrunken its energy to that because I find it very challenging to read. I mean, Justice is kind of like it means what it means, you know? And that's it. And the major arcana are not, you know, there's so much depth to them, but they're like the stars, they're like the moons, the planets, the houses of the zodiac signs. They represent powerful archetypes, but they get more complex when you look at the combinations of them. They get more complex when you look at the angles between them and other planets and other houses. The same thing happens with Justice. The same thing happens with all the major arcana. It's there in the reading to show a strong force of nature, and then you look at the minor arcana, you look at the court cards and the other major arcana around it, and you're able to decipher its meaning that way. So we have the Hangman, ruled by Pisces. Actually, particularly ruled by Neptune, which rules Pisces. The Hangman, it's very similar to the Hermit card, where like they're seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom, but instead of traveling and going and reading things and learning all these things and exploring and traveling like the Hermit card will, going deep within, the Hanged One is simply removing themselves from a situation, putting themselves up into a tree and hanging out there, basically challenging the universe to give them what they want, sacrificing something great to do it, maybe even their life. It's a card of gambling. It's a card of addiction. It's all or nothing. The Hangman is a self-sabotaging energy, but it also indicates enlightenment, especially when it's reversed, because when you see it when it's reversed, you can see the enlightenment around the head. It can represent Jesus on the cross, but not really. It can also represent more closely like Odin having hung himself in a tree in order to gain magic and awareness of the universe. So that's very much the magic behind the Hanged One. Key words would be suspension, things being on hold, punishment, sacrifice, addiction, spiritual dilemma, learning, a lack of awareness that's developing into awareness, spiritual progression, accelerated growth through abstinence or removal of oneself. It's very interesting, very complex card. We have the Death card. Death card is Pluto energy, it's Scorpio energy. It talks about transformation, talks about endings, talks about decay, breakdown, as well as the new day, the new dawn, life goes on. The Death card in a reading, some readers will say it never means death. I think sometimes it can mean death. I try not to read it that way, and I try not to scare people with it. I think that's inappropriate. If I see it in a personal reading, I always sugarcoat it and dumb it down for the person. Even if it looks like to me that it's talking about death coming up or something like that, it's how appropriate is it for you to talk about that? Not really. So even if it means death to you, like, think about how you want to communicate with that person and what you want to do for that person, what did they come for. So that's how I see the Death card anyway. Very powerful card. So I normally just call it the Transformation card. It just means there's lots of personal growth happening. It means that something's going to happen or is already happening, and then nothing will be the same after that. It's about inevitability as well, like we're all going to die at some point. It talks about peace, life and death. You can talk about our ancestors and the other side. Can talk about being close to death or being close to the spirit world, a portal. But ultimately it's a transformation card, and that's how I encourage you to read it. When it's reversed, it means transformation is being delayed or hasn't happened or is supposed to happen. When we see the Temperance card, it's probably one of my favorite cards. Temperance is ruled by Sagittarius. It's the Angel card. It's all about the angel in this card. The other cards that have angels in it have the angels up in the clouds. This one, the angel's all about that card. It's all about the angel in this card. And it's my spirit guide card. It tells me that this is your spirit guides, your angels, coming through the reading, giving you reassurance, telling you to go easy, telling you to moderate and practice moderation, practice temperance, knowing that time is a factor and that the divine timing may not be our own personal timing. There's also a pathway in the Temperance card that leads to the sun in the background, that leads to the mountains, a personal accomplishment, illumination. It has the lilies by the pond. Lilies talk about purity, and the pond, in the pond, the Temperance got 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot in the water. The Temperance angel is mixing water from one cup to the next. In some cards it's mixing water and fire, because it is a fire element. It's Sagittarius, but it's got a water element to it as well. So it's chemical, it's fire and water, it's the mixing of opposites, the tempering of metal, hot and cold, universal forces working together for you. So whenever I see a Temperance card, I say, oh, your spirit guides are here for you. Oh, you've got a strong communication or presence from your spirit guides that want to come through. You need to be patient. It's a healing card. It talks about a lot of healing, divine healing. It's definitely one of the healing cards in the deck. Just like the Strength card talks about health in itself and overcoming health, the Temperance card is the healing process. So is the Star card. So yeah, this is, I would say when you see the Temperance card, just think of moderation, balance, healing, spirit guides connecting with you. When it's reversed, I always say that your spirit guides want you to know that you have to do something in a situation, that it's outside of their control. They may be helping you as much as they can, but there's a limit to their help. When it's upright, it's more about trusting their help and doing a little bit less, listening to the guidance you already know. We have the Devil, the bad guy, the angel that has fallen. It looks a lot like the Lover's card with those two naked beings there. It's got fire in the card, but it's also Capricorn, earth energy. It's got dark magic in it. It's also got greed, negativity, toxicity, anger. It has all the negative qualities in it. It has darkness. envy. It has gluttony, punishment. It's a very negative card. It's the devil, When you see it, you look at the other cards around it and you determine what's negative. You determine what is happening with this devil-like energy. It doesn't mean that there's a demon or some type of evil devil trying to control you, and that you should be scared of some supernatural force. No, it just means that there's an archetype of that energy influencing your life, and that the devil does control us in some ways when we let it. We have power over the devil when we don't let it control us, when we do the right thing, when we do the healthy thing. And there's chains in the devil card. That's a really popular symbolism of the devil card as well, are the chains that bind these two people. It does talk about relationships a lot of the time, and toxic relationships. Usually the devil can represent a person in your life, a relationship, or it can represent an addiction. It can represent a way of thinking that's negative or not serving your highest purpose. It does talk about illusions in some ways, but not so much, because the devil card is the illusion that we choose to believe, knowing that it's not true anyway, but we choose to believe it regardless. Whereas the illusions of the moon card are harder to see, and the high priestess card. It's a very interesting energy. The devil keywords would be wealth, capitalism, greed, toxicity, evil, chains holding you back, free will, bad karma. Okay. We have the Tower card. Now the Tower card is, where the devil's ruled by Capricorn, which is Saturnian energy, which is all about control and harsh lessons. The Tower card is Pluto energy, again, like the Death card. It's also Mars energy, like the Emperor. So, it has an energy of destruction, war. It has an energy of transformation. I mean, if you look at the card, there's lightning striking a tower. This tower is on fire. It's blowing up. A authority is being challenged by the divine, by the lightning, That crown is being toppled off the tower. People are jumping out to save their lives and falling to their death. It's like a too late energy. Too late. The tower got struck and you were in it. You're going to die, You're going to fall to the rocky crags below. This is a really horrible card sometimes. A lot of people read it lightly. I've learned to never underestimate a Tower card moment. I mean, look at all the black in the card. It's just as black as the Devil card. So it's a card of destruction. It means something's changing, whether you like it or not, based off of natural forces, based off of ego, based off of inevitability. But it's next to the Star card. It's also about divine intervention at its finest. I mean, everything happens in our life for a reason. The Tower card's not random, even though it may seem random, it may seem pointless and meaningless and destructive just for the sake of destruction. There's purpose behind it. There's free will. There's fate behind it. So the Tower card in key words represents destruction, represents sudden change, represents the breakdown of the old foundation, having to rebuild your foundation from the scratch, from the start over again. It talks about ego, just like the devil talks about ego. And it talks about divine intervention. Now, depending on what kind of cards surround the Tower card, influence whether it's a good tower or a bad tower. But ultimately, I've seen it in personal readings. I'll be like, oh, look, it's surrounded by some not so bad cards. It's a good tower. And then the person will actually open up and tell me what's happening in their life. And I'm thinking, holy crap, that is a tower moment. You know, I was off in my interpretation of that. So I never underestimate a tower moment. In fact, it's good to ask questions when you see one come up, because you don't know if you're going to put your foot in your mouth with that card. We're getting close to the end, folks. We've got the Star card. This was number 16. It's funny, the devil's number 15, and it equals a 6. And the devil's associated with 666 by some people. The Tower card's a 17, or no, a 16 energy, which breaks down to a 7, which is kind of that divine intervention energy. The Star card is 17, which breaks down into an 8, which is about abundance and self-realization. But the numbers are not as important. You know, the Star card is all about the naked, beautiful person in the forefront of the card. It's all about the stars and the big giant star above her. It's about the pool with the cleansing waters and the little stork in the tree in the background. You know, it's a nighttime energy, but it's a beautiful nighttime energy. Same as the Moon card. It's also a nighttime energy that's beautiful. The Star card, well, it's a card of bathing. She's literally bathing by the pool. So it's a cleansing energy. It's a healing energy. The Star card is also represents the stars, so navigation, you know, finding your path, wishing upon a star, blessings, believing in something more than yourself, belief, power, optimism, hope. Hope is a really strong word for the Star card. It talks about, you know, offering up yourself for the higher good as well. It talks about vulnerability and exposure. It talks about star power, being seen, being noticed for all of who you are. The Star talks about well, it's got the stork in the background. It can be a precursor to, you know, possible pregnancy. She could be pregnant in that card. She has a little bit of a belly. Just like the Empress is a pregnancy card. You know, the Star card's very beautiful. I would say it's a wish fulfillment card as a key word. It's also a navigation, you know, finding your path, finding your star, wishing upon a star. It's about cleansing, it's about healing. So it's very powerful when it comes to health. Talks about spiritual healing. Talks about self-love and self-healing. You're doing it for yourself. It also talks about giving back, cleansing your environment so you can cleanse yourself. It's a very cosmic energy. You know, it's the stars, it's the universe at large. So there's an alien aspect to it. There's an aspect to it where it talks about the zodiac signs in general. It's ruled by Aquarius, and Aquarius is all about humanity and fighting for humanity and humanitarianism. It's also about technology and advancement of society. So it's got the Aquarius energy within it too. So, you know, it can talk about like being natural, but also the technology of it all. Like, where do we come from? Are we the chicken and the egg? Like, are we from the stars or are we from Earth? kind of thing. It's very cool. But ultimately, if you see a star card, it just means blessings, wish fulfillment. It means finding your path, being popular, being famous, maybe even cleansing, healing. Those are the key words I would stick to. Just going to grab another sip of coffee. We have the moon card here next. Notice how the next 3 cards are all celestial bodies. It's pretty cool, eh? The moon card is ruled by Pisces. Some people also think of it as a Cancer card because Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon is exalted in Taurus, so it can be a Taurus energy as well. But ultimately, the moon card's a Pisces card. It represents what's hidden behind the moon. It's the illusions. It's the light that we can see in the dark, but it's not very direct light. It's a reflection, you know. So it's about illusions. It's about fear because it's at nighttime, and we would be hopeless without the light of the moon and the stars at nighttime. We wouldn't be able to see anything at all. You know, oftentimes predators hunt at night with the light of the moon. The moon also moves in cycles. It changes every couple of days in different zodiac signs. Travels from Taurus into Gemini into Cancer and so forth. Or maybe it goes backwards, I'm not sure. But it's constantly moving through the 12 zodiac signs every month. And every month it comes into fullness. Every month it goes into crescent moon, new moon. It's got in-between stages as well, like the halfway points, waning and waxing. So there's a lot of symbolism to the moon card. It's the divine feminine as well, where the sun is masculine. The moon is about evolution, intuition, fear, illusion, secrets, depth. It's a deep emotional card. It's the depths of your emotions. You know, it's the card that rules your emotions. Very powerful. Keywords would be secrets, fears, mental health. It's definitely a mental health card. Illusions. Keywords would be intuition. Oh, it's a pregnancy card too, because you know the woman's cycle is governed monthly, just like the moon. It talks about a change in a situation, a change in a month. It talks about cycles. If you see a moon card and there's other major arcana in the reading, or there's minor arcana next to it, we could be talking about that particular moon phase of that zodiac sign. So it's an excellent time marker card. It's also the sister energy, where the sun is the brother energy. The sun is the newborn baby. It's purity, it's vitality. The sun is warmth. It's illumination, and so is the moon. The moon is also illumination. Different kinds of illumination. Where the sun is like a breakthrough, a new dawn, a new era. The moon is more so like a self-reflection, you know? So the sun card is all about blessings. It's the happiest card in the deck. We'd be nowhere without the sun, you know? Everything revolves around the sun. It's highly spiritual. It talks about the self. It talks about God. It talks about your identity. I mean, your sun sign is your zodiac sign. So we could be talking about different months of the year as well when you see the sun here. Whenever I see the sun card, I know that there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of warmth, there's a lot of blessings in your reading. And it often sheds light on the other cards around them, around the sun. So the sun can be like good news, basically. It can talk about children or a child, a newborn or a baby. Whereas the moon can talk about a baby that's in the womb. The sun card is after the childbirth. I don't read too much into the sun card, to be honest. It's not as complicated as the moon. It can talk about creativity as well, because it's ruled by the sun is ruled by the sun, which is Leo energy, which is all about creativity and family and confidence, vitality, pride, courage. It's very beautiful. The next card is Judgment. The Judgment card is a card of, just like justice. It's one word. It's justice and judgment. Like, judgment is after justice. After the situation plays out. Judgment is like the results of justice, basically. So it's a card of results. It's a card of reviewing and analyzing. It's a card of forgiveness. It's a card of rebirth and renewal. It's a card of a reawakening. It's also a card of final decisions, final destiny, final outcome. This is it. This is Judgment Day. It's a card of communication from the divine because of the trumpet here coming from the angel. It's an angel card. It's quite powerful. Can talk about your connection with ancestors and spirit guides as well. When I see a Judgment card, I think of, wow, this is a big deal. This is a big situation. This is a final decision. This is a final realization. Something's about to complete. And then after the Judgment card is the World card. Basically, keywords for Judgment, I would just keep it very simple, is review, reanalyze, make a decision, and rebirth. Anything is possible. Forgiveness. It's all about the Judgment card. Because only God judges us, only God can forgive us, kind of thing. And that happens perpetually because we're immortal, So we have to be open to it. We have to realize and learn and, With the World card, the final card here, the World card represents the end, the achievement, the victory. It's the victory lap, She's got the laurel wreath around her. And she's flying through the air, just like the Wheel of Fortune. It's a travel card. Judgment's also a travel card because of the wings of the Judgment angel. The World card represents freedom, empowerment, release, non-attachment, and victory. The end of a situation, the end of a cycle, and the beginning of a new cycle. It's the final chapter. It's the end of the chapter. Where Judgment would be like the climax or like the last chapter, the World card is like the period at the end of the chapter. It's like the end of the book. It's when you close the book and you move on or open up a new book, It's definitely a travel card, though. Remember that. It talks about the world. It's the world. So it can talk about things that are going on in the world at large. World events. Which is really interesting. You can talk about long distance energy as well. Things that are happening far away. When you see the world in a reading, know that person perhaps lived somewhere else far away before, or that person travels very far or likes to travel. When you see a world in a personal reading, know that they've been through a lot and they've learned their lessons, and at the end of the chapter, is opening up to new things. If you look at the other cards around the World card, you'll see what's unfolding next. It's beautiful. Alright, well that's what I've got for all the general interpretations of the cards. I hope you really enjoyed this video and learned a lot from it. As promised, I said I would talk about the prophecy of these cards, from the Fool card to the World card. Something I've noticed while reading tarot cards over the years. It's interesting. The Fool card is the beginning. I mean, we don't know when we started. Did aliens bring us here? Did we evolve from the mud? You know, what's the beginning of our timeline? Well, we don't know. The Fool is about learning and exploring, and talks about the beginning of an adventure. The Magician is magic. It's you know, even though we don't know where we started with the Fool card, we did start somewhere. And in the past, we had the ability to manifest. We knew how to use our tools, which is very interesting. Someone in the Magician card, perhaps you know, an unknown person in history. Perhaps it was Moses, because we're looking at prophecy energy through the Bible. You know, with the Magician card, it's like there's always been some people or some level of society that has known from the beginning our history, has known how to use that knowledge to their advantage. Then we have the High Priestess, the keeper of that knowledge, the bridge between the people who know and the people who don't know. The High Priestess doesn't know everything, but she knows enough to know everything, kind of thing. The Empress is the growth of society. So it's almost as if we're looking at here ancient history, ancient civilizations, the inner knowing and the power of just being a human. Then we get into the agriculture, the growth of society, the growth of wealth, the time of like good luxury with the Empress energy. We've got the Hermit, which is the time of the pharaohs, the time of leadership and great kingdoms, great empires. We have the Hierophant, which is the birth of religion, the power and control of religion over the minds of everybody, which is very interesting. You know, the Magician could be perceived as Moses or Jesus or Muhammad or any spiritual person from the past, next to the esoteric knowledge, next to the connection to the divine of the Fool. But ultimately we see how the different layers of society expand and grow over the you know, however long we're looking at a cycle here. We have Lover's card, which is where it gets interesting. This is moments in the Bible that have changed everything. You know, we've got the Adam and the Eve. We've got the burning bush. Notice how the Lover's card didn't start in the beginning. That's because there was a beginning before the Bible, you know? Before the Bible, biblical moments of the Lover's card, we have the Fool, where there's just divine human intelligence already next to the Magician. There's the esoteric knowledge of the universe with the High Priestess. There's the growth of agriculture and abundance and wisdom and love and fertility. The growth of society, the growth of population with Empress. There's the Emperor energy, which is all about law and order and war and conflict and rising to the top and creating empires and creating civilizations. And the Hierophant is the civilization, is the culture, is the religion, is the spirituality that binds everybody. But then we have these moments where the divine interacts with humankind in the Lover's card. Then in the Chariot, you know, more war, more conflict, but it also talks about acceleration of growth, acceleration of mankind. Mankind now given a tool, a vehicle from these biblical moments, from these connections with the divine, from these spiritual people that have had a connection to God, accelerating the growth of our society, where we are dealing with nature with the Strength card, where we're gaining strength, where we're going through lessons of compassion. With the Hermit card here, there also being a lot of spiritual awakening and people throughout the centuries, especially after these divine intervention biblical moments, where we've got, lineages of people who are connecting to God now, but you don't really know about them because they're hermits, kind of thing. Then we have the Wheel of Fortune, which is that Sagittarius energy, that school of higher learning energy, where people are learning and being taught. And it changes society, it changes everything. Then we have Justice here, where religion is being enforced, where the rules are being enforced, where karmic justice is playing out. We have the Hanged One, which is when, Jesus is literally hung on the cross, kind of thing. When we realize that we've got so much left to grow, so much left to know. Then we have the Death card that comes after the being hung on the cross. Then we have to rely on our connection to spirit through spirit guides, angels, and ancestors with the Temperance card. The Devil takes over, and we go into a period of darkness after that time. The destruction of the old. Then the beginning of the new with the technology, which is where we're at right now. We're in the Star card energy. The revelation of secrets, the revelation of the unknown, what's behind the moon type of energy with the Moon card. Going into a beautiful age of awakening, spiritual awakening, spiritual knowing, technological advancement. Then we have Judgment Day coming, which affects the world, So that's kind of like there's like an element of prophecy in these energies, and it's a timeline of how civilization has kind of fluctuated back and forth. We're just looking at it through the lens of like the Bible and like where we're at in the last 5,000 to present moment years. We're just seeing that technological boom now after the destruction of the old, and we can always move backwards in these energies as well. It's very interesting. All right, well, I've talked long enough. There's so much more to the Major Arcana than what I've just talked about, by the way. But, hopefully this crash course gives you some insight. I hope you leave a comment and let me know what you thought of this video. And thank you so much. I'll see you again for your next tarot lesson. Perhaps in a month or so. Okay, take care.